obviously I'm going for monkeyfish.
Do I have a choice?
No. I stole it.
Okay. Old pendulous breast herself.
Chase you through a cave. I know you do outside.
And we're going to talk about how wrong you are after.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Monsters Lounge. I'm Jeni.
And I'm Tressa.
Yeah, you really are.
Well,
and
thank
I
you.
like it.
Aw. It's all right, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Listen, we've got a great guest tonight, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
But before that, we do want to mention a couple of things.
What?
You know what that music means?
Tell me.
Nobody else does, though.
No.
It's time for Shark News.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I have some fantastic shark news for all shark lovers. Not only is Shark Week coming up real soon, but we also have a new documentary series on Netflix called The Shark Whisperer.
Yeah. He's a shark communicator?
Yeah, she.
Oh, I meant the female he.
Yeah. So she is Ocean Ramsey. And
what? Wait, is that her name? Sounds fake.
It's not. She's actually a free diver, and she has been studying sharks for a long time. She's been in the water with a lot of them. She does very specifically great whites, and she has been noted most recently because she's been down with deep blue, who is at 20 feet long. She's the largest female that has been recorded. So it's very exciting.
Neat.
I know. I'm very excited about it as well. Listen, there's been a couple of recent shark attacks.
Oh.
And so officials are, and I will also say this, stay out of the shark's way, man. They live there.
Also, stop using bacon grease as tanning lotion. What are you doing?
Just stop it.
That's weird.
Guys.
It doesn't smell as good as you think it does.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. That's kind of all of my shark facts for right now. Okay. I'm waiting for my opening intro montage.
Oh, you're waiting for that? Are you?
I'm waiting to do the work to make it happen. Is what I'm really waiting on. So, but I would like to tell everybody a little bit about the guest tonight. Because we are so thrilled, because he is fascinating to listen to.
Yeah.
And fascinating to read too. Because he's an investigative writer, and his name is Peter Robbins. And he is a writer and a lecturer. His writing and research are focused on the subject of truly anomalous. We knew I was going to mess that word up at some place. I got the last name, so I had to mess up one word.
Oh, yeah.
UFOs and their implications for humanity. He's appeared on guest on countless radio programs, podcasts, etc., and has been a consultant on numerous television programs and documentaries. So please help me welcome Peter.
Thank you, and good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Welcome. So glad to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here.
There.
Here and there.
You have the book corner of the lounge that people usually don't get to see.
Yeah, it's nice. We don't like to show it off too much.
Right. We don't want to make people jealous.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of books, in listening to some of your prior interviews, you said something that has nothing to do with UFOs. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And it's one of my favorite things that I've heard from a guest and really made me very excited. But you talked about how you started with deductive reasoning based around Sherlock Holmes with Basil Rathbone. And that just delighted me because I loved that program so much. I loved the books as a kid so much, and that just made me incredibly happy.
Yeah, he, of course, played Sherlock Holmes wonderfully well in a series of films in late 30s and into the 40s.
Mhm.
And as a kid, um, he was, well, like for a lot of us growing up in the age of television, our introduction to literature is sometimes, through a movie or a TV show. And it got me reading Arthur Conan Doyle later in life, and then really enjoying this invention of his named Sherlock Holmes and the idea of deductive reasoning, which he ascribed to his detective, became really part of my modus operandi. You call yourself a UFO researcher, a paranormal researcher. We don't graduate with degrees in that. We don't have organizations that will yank our licenses if we act inappropriately. They are, to put it mildly, unregulated fields. And it's easy enough for somebody to call themselves, a UFO researcher, paranormal researcher, and get caught up in the romance that they see themselves in, living this life. And if something appears to be of potential interest in these areas, jump right to it and declare it, and then try to prove it, as opposed to this idea of deductive reasoning of you've got a genuine mystery. Take a look at the most mundane, boring, everyday possible explanations for it and explore them as fully as you can. If that doesn't work out, take one single step up to the second most boring one and continue to go. It's not very sexy. It's not very exotic. It can be boring as hell. But if you do it as an exercise and you genuinely don't resolve it in any conventional way, that's not only when it gets interesting, but when you really, you're building on some kind of solid ground, even if it's ethereal, that nothing in the normal run of things checks out. So thank you, Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, for that.
That almost makes me more excited when you have looked at it from a practical standpoint, and then you keep coming up empty as to reasonable explanations. Like, that's so exciting, right?
It can be, and it can be in a quiet way as well. If you're doing research, it could be in your town library or an archive or almost any place that has documents or whatever you're looking for, and finding that paper, that document, that detail, that confirmation that augments your other information that you put together or confirms it. That is a very good feeling. And once again, you're building on fairly solid ground. And if you're an investigative writer in a field, well, it's not quite as controversial now as it has been for most of its life, but people seem to take, ufology a little more seriously these days. But still, the last thing you want to do is make a pronouncement and then get stuck in it because you didn't fully check it out first.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Or even just like digging your heels in when there's no need to do that. There's lots to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, I know we had some very specific questions. Tressa definitely had one, and I feel like we should kind of get into that now-ish
Right.
because
Yeah, I
because
have a
it could
feeling
go
we're going to
for
be
a
jumping
long
around.
time.
Yeah,
let's go with the best material we have, and we'll get, if we get desperate, we'll make some stuff up.
oh, absolutely.
Excellent.
That's what we do.
I do that all the time.
Okay, I was listening to an older interview with Ryan Sprague. Oh, sorry. But
Who's having trouble with the last names now?
well, that's just because I'm reading them and not saying. Anyway, you had mentioned you were talking about the Nazca lines and all that, and I'm wondering if you're like, I'm assuming you're up on the Nazca mummies and all the stuff that happened a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Did you get to hear about all of the like MRIs and the DNA samples and everything they did about it?
A very interesting case. Number one, we've had a history of promotion or presentation of certain cases, events in South America, in Central America, that come off as somewhat tabloid to more serious audiences, and some of them are. At the same time, there have been so many well-documented, absolutely outrageously strange and truly unusual events that many researchers in South and Central America and Mexico have documented. And when this came up some years ago, my de facto sensibility was fake, nothing to see here. We have had fake mummies, and it's part of the history of fakery. But the first thing that made me start to question my just sloughing it off was two individuals who I've known for years, both of them specialists in different areas of study, whose opinion I respect. They took it seriously. And both of them ended up not only going down to examine them for themselves and get more involved than most of us ever would. I still am not fully convinced, but boy, there's more evidence that these are genuinely not fakery. As to what exactly they are, what they represent, how well we can document it. It's become really quite a cause, with people taking very emotional positions on both sides. And because of the involvement of certain journalists and parts of the government, it's one of those events that's still a bit murky. But I think we should keep our eyes on it, because it ain't going away. And at a certain point, more will be technically established about these mummies that will make it safer for establishment scientists to take it seriously, the same way that we've seen over the past more than half a dozen years in the world of UFO studies, that this is now no longer a subject that you have to worry about losing your career if you make a public statement that you don't think it's a joke, that kind of thing. But yeah, very interesting phenomena. And the late great Stanton T. Friedman, one of our truly most legendary UFO researchers, he had a phrase that if he hadn't decided on something or fully evaluated, it was in his gray box, pun intended. And so I guess I'm looking forward to this story to continue to develop, but I know now, as well as I can, that it's not the simple fake that I thought it was. They were.
I think that we all kind of brushed it off immediately, because
Right, because it
the
sounds
way it was
insane.
presented. Well, then the way it was presented, it was very, I don't know.
Well, tabloid and very
Yeah.
showy, and pull out the stops, and that's the nature of the individual that promoted it.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad guy or anything, but
No.
it just, you need all the help you can get.
Yeah.
And small aspects of appearance can mean a lot when the world is looking to pick you apart and looking for some weak spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, such reporter also came out, I think most publicly, about the boogosphere. Do you have any insight or opinions on the boogosphere?
Now, this was the thing that was that I thought was a place and was actually a spherical metal object, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I sometimes disappoint folks in interviews by saying, I don't know. What do you mean
Not
you
at
don't know?
all.
You're well, I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. And if I can't have an intelligent opinion, I'd
Well,
rather hold off on having any opinion until I know more about it. So Yeah, I don't know enough to have an opinion on that at this point.
Listen, I appreciate that because it's better than hearing some BS. Like,
I was going to say,
and I only know anything about it from TikTok. So, yeah.
well, there's the research source that I have not consulted yet.
It's very in depth and mostly lies. So, you might check it out.
Really? I had no idea. That seems so strange.
Shush.
So one of the things that I really enjoy about listening to some of these interviews that you have had is this angle on ancient aliens. And since we're kind of talking about in that general area anyway, and it's because, you know, I've have not been very well read nor researched on that specific subject.
Mhm.
So, but I do go to Belize on a semi-regular basis, and occasionally will go and visit some of the Mayan ruins down there. And
Ah,
of course, I have to ask the tour guides if they seem like they're knowledgeable about that specific site. I go, well, what do you think about the ancient aliens? Just because I'm curious, you know, and the reactions that I've gotten are, you know, it's a nice idea, but I feel like we're discrediting the indigenous peoples who actually came up with these things. And can you explain a little bit of like what those lines or like why I don't really know why we do this?
yeah. Well, the Nazca lines are and creatures and objects are on the plains of Nazca in Peru, very high up, and they weren't really discovered until the age of flight, and then even some time into it because it was not a regular route. And what was observed was nothing less than lines that ran for, you know, thousands of feet, and spiders and monkeys and hummingbirds, and some of them several hundred feet across, formed by on a plain covered with rocks and pebbles. Follow this thought. The lines themselves are made by removing the rocks and pebbles, say at a width of, you know, 4 inches or whatever, for 1,000 feet or so, which suggests a pretty organized effort. You could do that, you know, laying out strings, but thinking conventionally that this is human beings only right now, what the heck were they thinking? Why would they do this? They couldn't fly. Were the leadership so sophisticated that this was a project they assigned, you know, the plebeian class to just do for their conceptual pleasure, thinking about if we were up in the sky and we looked down? That's a little far-fetched, but not completely out of the question. I think it was 20, maybe 25 years ago, National Geographic did a show, and sometimes, you know, network TV hits it right on the nose. This might have even been in the network days. They started with the premise of, would it have been possible with available materials 1,000 years ago or so, whenever, I forget the exact time frame, to have created a lighter than air conveyance? And, you know, that the royalty could have gone up in a balloon and looked down and come on down, and expensive project, but gee, that was really very cool. And they did it. They did it with animal skins and basket weaving and, you know, building a fire like the French did in the 17th century, the first Montgolfier brothers to have a hot air balloon that went up over Paris. Now, that auto mute function, that was the case, but it means it's absolutely possible that it happened. And then again, at the same time, who's kidding who? There's no question in my mind that back then they were probably seeing some extraordinary things in the skies, like they do now.
Yeah.
And their reaction might well have been, you know, welcome. We are making these pictures for you to look at. Could it be that simple? It absolutely could, if that was the case. They're very elegant, they're very beautiful. And again, when you get a sense of the size and scale of them, and thinking about this incredibly clever and delicate way that they created these images, removing stones and pebbles, and nothing's there to mess it up. It's not like wind is going to come and blow it away. But for any of your viewers, just Google Nazca lines, Nazca animals, whatever, and put yourself in the spot. You'll be looking down on these things photographically, and try to imagine what would have encouraged you if you were the leader, to say, okay, we got a project for everybody here, and you all know why, or you don't. But I think they're fascinating, and they're great art, as well as whatever other purpose they served.
Yeah.
I didn't learn until recently that they're only like 5 or 6 inches tall, those little rocks. That blows my mind. It's wild. You know what else
Nice.
does? Oh, I'm bad at this.
For those of you naysayers, I want you to know how much I appreciate how many of you grabbed a hold of my small package after last week's show. It is out and available. You can get both of my books, The Other Side, A Guide to the Paranormal and Ghost Hunting, and my brand new book, Theater of the Mind, Tales from the Darkness. Both books are out. One, of course, kind of a how-to ghost hunt book, and the other story book of strange supernatural occurrences all around the world. You can get your hand on my small package by just ordering it right off of my website. You can go right to paranormal60.com, scroll down on the front page there, or go to the shop and scroll down and you'll see our book bundle. And I was so humbled by the fact of how many men put their hands on my small package at the end of last week's show and bought it. It was great. It made me feel loved and wanted. I'm not going to lie.
I apologize for that.
Oh, Dave.
That's pretty much it, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Dave.
That's all you need. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, it's so good. Okay, so we've gone over that. We've solved that mystery, which is what I'm gonna determine that was. It was solved.
One
Check
down.
mark.
Done and done.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know.
We're about progress.
Hit me with
and getting
another
work
one.
done.
Yeah. So we keep getting like more and more now. Okay. Everyone needs to bear in mind that I'm really new on all of this stuff. So we're getting more and more images from like NASA and JPL, right? Are we seeing anything that is indicative of life on Mars? I just like it because of Bowie. Whatever.
Boy,
It's fine.
you did your homework on that question. Yes. JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, that has partnered with NASA really since the start. For as long as we've been sending up satellites, almost, we've been sending up satellites with cameras attached. And early on, going several hundred miles above the moon, but photographing it, Hasselblad optical equipment, best available, and filing them. It's what we do. At this point, one can only imagine how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of photos on various missions to Mars, to the moon, and well beyond. NASA has and continues to photograph images that seem to show stuff that didn't belong there, started to appear often as second or third generation Xeroxes in various publications going back to the 70s. And imagine, if you will, that there is activity, or was, that left traces of civilizations from, a zillion years ago or 50 years ago. It's a moot point. But if you were NASA, how would you handle that? You can't just let all that stuff out, certainly not intentionally. people will ask questions, and who knows what kind of answers you'll be forced to give them. But the photos, how many, and if you think about it, how many people who worked for NASA, even in its absolute height, would have had the security clearances to know, oh dear, well, here's the remains of an ancient city on Mars, and we can't release this image. We really have to get it filed, though, because we're following the law. So we can fuzz out an area with, the digital equivalent of airbrushing and hope nobody makes a big stink of it. And it got a lot more lip service in the early 90s when a researcher and writer named Richard Hoagland published photographs of the so-called face on Mars in the Cydonia region. And that captured the public imaginations more. NASA responded by saying, gosh, there's this condition called pareidolia. We all have it, where you see a face in the profile of a mountain, or Jesus in a tortilla chip, or, a poodle in a cloud. This is only that because there's nothing going on in these places, except that more and more people started to look harder and harder. Very different kind of researchers than I am. And about a year and a half ago, after initially being really interested in it, 30 years ago or so, and just moving on to other things, it really began to recapture my imagination and my interest. Anyway, to cut to the chase, there are ever so many websites of regular folks who are taking the time to get involved in this and going over, these photographs, which are high quality, with a 10-power glass, literally like that. Maybe AI can now handle that for NASA, but up until now, things have slipped through. And I started to do a series of presentations on it last year, and I'm continuing a bit, although I don't expect to work on it forever. But some of the stuff that we're seeing is completely mind-blowing. There are, in fact, what one can only read as the remains of habitation, photographs that look uncannily like a satellite photograph looking at a village in Iraq 3,000 years ago, that classic kind of patterning. And my intention in bringing it back to people's attention is this is important. And in this more disclosure-prone age, these photos, if folks understood that this is NASA material, we have the latitude, the longitude, the mission they were taken on, the rover, if it's a direct rover image. And there are two categories of images. There are these aerial shots of stuff that looks architectural and doesn't belong there. And then these objects that rovers have been encountering the last years, things that look uncannily like a bottle or a rectangular opening in a mountainside, or a perfect rectangle in the soil on the moon and on Mars that look uncannily like the remains of, a small cabin, something that doesn't happen in nature unless we're talking about crystals forming, that you've got 4 90-degree angles coming together where nothing else has got any right angles going on.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think the challenge is we are all now very sophisticated viewers. We're used to watching things in high def, but more to the point, we know that any image can be faked. Doesn't matter anymore. We all went through that window in our own way. And, might have been a wistful moment of, oh my gosh, that's special effects, that's CGI. I can't trust another image in my life. I remember with me, it actually happened. And it was really a moment I lingered on in the first run of Jurassic Park, which I saw in the best theater in New York at the time, the Ziegfeld, which has a screen that's so wide that if you're in the first 20, 25 rows in the middle, your peripheral vision doesn't reach to the edge.
Oh,
Fantastic.
also,
And
yes, dinosaurs. Thank
it
you.
was fabulous. And of course, great sound system. But there was a moment, it's just like, oh my God, I get it. The real secret here isn't that they can do this mechanically. They found the island where the dinosaurs live. It lasted a second, but it was real. It was like being a kid and then go, oh no, they didn't find the island. This is technology, and I can't trust these images. So with that understood, how do we represent this kind of imagery to the public and say, folks, this is real. This is the real deal. This is where you see something that's changed. NASA did it before it was released to hide something. Anyway, that's the story with the NASA JPL images. And if you Google my name and NASA JPL images, I think there are some talks available on YouTube, I think.
Yes, there are absolutely, and they're fascinating. I just had a real quick question because
Sure.
it seems like a huge amount of work, right? And it I don't even know how you would begin to do this, but having the essentially direction point, like the latitude and the longitude of some of these images, can you match the aerial image with the rover image? Like, is that something that people can do?
NASA does maintain a database. I forget, you'd have to do a little exploring as to how to get into it. But a lot of these sites like MarsAnomaly.com, it's independent researchers posting their observations, sometimes in great detail that one would immediately disagree with this. They're talking about factory buildings or mining operations, whatever it is something, but they're being, subjective about it. And again, how do you get people to take something seriously?
Yeah.
That they know if you're telling the truth, and this is the only example of this I've ever heard, you're setting me up. If I really take this seriously and say I do take it seriously, and then everybody learns I've been fooled, that's going to hurt my reputation or my credibility in this work. And I'd like to take them seriously, and they seem authentic. Anyway, that's the challenge that we have with them right now.
Yeah, in my brain, I'm like, well, if you could get the aerial photo and then you could get the rover photo at the same, time, like.
There are two different kind of classifications. Some of the aerial shots can be taken from 50 or several hundred miles up, where the rover photos, you're nose to nose with these damn things. And they just don't belong there, like a discarded machine part. And you owe it to yourself and to anybody else to push to the point of saying, could this be coincidence? Could this be pareidolia? Could this be a play of light? Am I seeing something that's convex or concave? Or that's a cross, that's a cross that wouldn't happen in nature. It could easily predate Christianity, but there's a very distinctive, seemingly manufactured cross at a certain location on Mars. And it comes up very clearly in the photos that we have of it. One of many anomalies that really are quite exciting, and at the same time, just have you an overdrive asking yourself questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love this I love all of this because it pretty much it shows us that the CIA remote viewing exercises were 100% real.
Yeah.
Because of course someone was there and they destroyed the planet, so they got out of there, came here or wherever, and now they're going to destroy wherever they are now.
Or whatever. But yeah, right now, I would say things don't look too good the way that they're going.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
That's what I meant to say.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Where's the candy?
It's great living in the Twilight Zone.
Great. Fantastic.
We need chocolate and goats or sharks. We're the sharks. Somebody.
Yes.
You eat all those things?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's comfort, Tressa. It's comfort.
Okay.
Mhm,
Go ahead.
mhm, mhm.
Have either of you ever had what we'll call a UFO sighting of some sort?
Ooh, kinda. I think so. Maybe.
Yeah.
No?
Same.
If you
I'll
saw
say kind of.
something that you couldn't identify and it was in the
Yes.
sky, then that would be an unidentified,
True.
seemingly flying object.
But
Yeah.
perhaps it was my eyeballs that were mistaken a strange piece of
Or
light.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your eyeballs doing with what's
I don't know. It
happening?
was just a light and it was very, very far away. And it moved in very strange directions when nothing else was moving around in the sky.
Yeah.
Your eyeballs were doing that?
Maybe, who knows? I don't know.
Okay.
Listen, I was a lot younger.
It's unidentified, so you can say it's a UFO experience.
Okay, fine. It's a UFO.
Were you on your own when you saw it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. I think people who have UFO sightings fall into two categories: those who are on their own and those who have somebody or other people with them when they see it. Sometimes it can work out that after a time, people will not verify their statements or back out or explain it away or embrace it. And of course, if you have a witness to an experience, you have all that more of a challenge to escape what you saw that may have disturbed you, or all that more of a chance of verifying it and validating it in the best way possible. There's somebody else with you when it happened.
Yeah.
My experience was similar to Jenny's, but I didn't. It was a road trip in the middle of nowhere. In the sky, two lights looked like they were playing tag. They were just having a grand old time together.
Oh boy.
And I was like, I'm in a car full of my friends. I'm not going to say anything. That's weird. Until my friend was like, did you see that?
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about it since. This is decades ago, but yeah, that one was with somebody.
That's often the case. And it seems so counterintuitive. You have an experience like that just is so unique in your life and maybe the most exotic thing you're ever going to see on a certain level. And the rule of thumb is, I think I'll sort of forget about that. And that was not that big a deal, that it was the most amazing thing I ever saw in my life. But it's on TV tonight. It's part of the way these things function. These things and the intelligences behind them.
Yes, absolutely. Because I feel like if I don't think about it, if I experience something and if I don't take note of it and drill it into my head that you saw this, don't forget this, I will absolutely forget. And I've always thought that especially with a UFO experience, there's something going on where they're controlling the situation. They're going to try and manipulate how you think about this situation.
I think that's very observant. And it's one of two functions that's going on. One is we in the research community have established, I think, beyond much reasonable doubt, that these intelligences have certain powers over our perception. Sounds corny, but it's true. The other thing is, and it's usually not brought up because, once again, it's not as exotic or sexy or cool, but the physiology of human shock plays into this very often. If you're in a situation where you all of a sudden are exposed to something heartbreaking, horrible, scary, car accident, murder, what have you, our minds often can put a lid on it, repressed memories.
Yeah.
All too common and often in all too tragic everyday kind of human affairs, but so common in people who have abduction experiences, some contact experiences, and that memory will lie there either until it's ready to be dealt with or something jars it loose. And again, it could be them. I think for myself, if even after all my years in the work, if I woke up in the middle of the night and there was kind of a glow in the room, and I'm making out these hazy figures at the end of the bed, even though I've studied them for decades, and I think I might just walk away from this work for good, because I would not be a happy camper at all. It's
No.
one thing to intellectually know and accept. It's another thing. Hang on. No, this is not for me. Don't make this real. But
I
I would,
wasn't asking for this.
my only point being that in a situation like that, I could see myself making myself see something else.
Mhm.
You're
Oh,
not
yeah.
these little gray guys. You're a 4-foot white owl. You're strange enough, but I can handle that better than what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The brain is a funny little fella.
Well, and our entire nervous system is built to protect us, right? You know, like that's why there's so much blockage when it comes to things like PTSD, because what is trauma but something that you're not,
Bingo.
that turns you on sort of a dime, you know? Yeah. Oh,
All
my
right.
goodness.
We got to take a break, but we'll be right back with some more of this other stuff that's not traumatic. Okay.
A vampire in Rhode Island?
A UFO crash in Connecticut?
A flying moose in Maine?
A haunted bridge that calls your name?
New England is weird.
Really weird.
Wicked Strange by Jeff Belanger and Frank Grace is your ticket to the bizarre. Ghosts, monsters, urban legends, and roadside oddities you won't believe until you see them.
So pre-order now on Amazon. It drops September 2nd.
Assuming the Black Dog of West Peak doesn't get you first.
Let's get strange.
Wicked Strange. Pre-order your copy now on Amazon.
All right. And yet again, you know, I was really hoping to have a Monsters Lounge merch commercial. I'm just going to throw that out
Why
there.
didn't you make me one? I would have played it.
We have one, and it's great.
Oh,
Monster
sorry.
merch has a great ring to it.
Right?
That's definitely what we should call the store. Just
Why
saying.
didn't we think of that? It's so obvious.
I don't know. It's so obvious. Boss head. I'm still thinking about all of these images. Like, you had me at that face on Mars thing, because that was such a great episode on Unsolved Mysteries
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
I should,
Live in
just
fear
as a
of that thing.
postscript to that, when NASA explained it away to the public as, gee, folks, it would have been great if it was, wouldn't that have been amazing? But this was a play of light. This is what it really looks like. You know. And I remember thinking at the time, this would have probably been 30 years ago or so. Well, I guess that could be the case. And I know I want this to be real. So I've got to, temper my own enthusiasm here and be as objective as possible and let's be grown up and get on it. But some years later, my thoughts were, hang on, maybe, is it possible that it is much like Hoagland first presented it? And that, is it possible NASA is not telling us the truth, and that
What?
maybe it doesn't look like a whole hodgepodge of nonsense, and that it does kind of look like a 5-mile long face?
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it 2.5 miles? Well, in any
I
case,
don't know. I'm going to take you at your word, whatever.
it's a big face.
It's a
big
It's
face.
a massive, massive face. I just had such an important question and I just lost it.
It's
Okay,
never
I'll
happened to me.
Yeah.
I'll
Man.
hijack it real quick.
Man. Yeah,
Um,
please hijack it.
Jenny and I've been guesting on shows and stuff, and people always ask, what brought you into this field? What made you interested in the paranormal? And my answer always befuddles anyone who asks. I grew up very, very strict Christian, or at least at the beginning. And the Bible was so weird and so creepy and so fascinating. And I don't know that people don't know this, or they just think I'm weird, because there's so, just the miracles alone, that's crazy. But there are UFOs in the Bible. There are dinosaurs, I think, in the Bible.
Yes.
It's like it's a hodgepodge of fun stuff in there once you get past all the judgy stuff.
Leave the judgy stuff aside, and everything else is a really cool story.
Yeah. Can
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah. And listen, I say this with the knowledge that it's there, but absolutely no knowledge of what the actual stories are. I just remember them being there.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples so I don't feel like an idiot?
Yeah. No. I grew up in Reformed Jewish tradition where there was very little dogma and an understanding that the Bible was a combination of things. The word of actual people who were alive at the time, earlier stories and myths, analogies, morality tales, and that it was, with all due respect to anybody who feels otherwise, it was not God writing down everything with a giant golden fountain pen.
What?
I know,
No,
I'm
just
sorry.
Mine's blown.
Just my opinion, I'm probably wrong. And lightning coming through the ceiling.
Oh no!
That's not gonna happen.
But it interested me enough once I became involved in this work to think back on Sunday school and my memory of certain biblical stories. And the one that came to mind, this shortly after I became involved in the work, was Ezekiel. And some years after that, as just a little self-assigned project, and I generally work for myself and can do that, I either borrowed or took out of the library or found and pulled together 7 different Bibles, St. James, Hebrew Union College, etc. All of them quite the same, but a little different here and there. And went to Ezekiel and read Ezekiel in all these different versions, not sentence by sentence, but word by word. And with very little variation, it was, here's Ezekiel minding his business, tending his flock, and lo, out of the heavens cometh a wheel within a wheel, of the appearance of burnished beryllium. That sounds like metal. And it had eyes all around. One of the ways that's been interpreted, and to me, not inappropriately, is like windows on a commercial airliner, or if they were round, windows.
Yeah.
The angel that comes forth from the landed apparition is encased in a metal suit of some sort, decorated with animal heads, and interacts with Ezekiel and begins a relationship that goes on for some time. And could this biblical verse have been a completely understandable misinterpretation of a real non-standard event and a landing and a disembarkation from a being from elsewhere, obviously in a machine of advanced technology under intelligent control? And perhaps one of the theories that bears a fair amount of weight is to interact with this emerging species on Earth and perhaps plant that notion of a deity over the other deities that can come and go in these chariots of, metal, what have you, lay down a basis for mythologies and understandings and misunderstandings that have followed for millennia. Again, joking about ufologists not being credentialed. Part of the challenge is anybody can state a theory, no matter how wild it is, or that this is what they know is true, and they know it because that's what the beings told them, or because they saw it in a documentary, or because it came to them in a dream, or. But Ezekiel, for me, is a perfect example of a real event
Yeah.
that was captured in its own way by a scribe of the time that could only be interpreted in mystical, religious ways. What we don't understand, the mechanisms or the science behind, we tend to mystify as a species until we find out the answer, and then we can either reject it and continue to believe, or change our attitude,
Yeah.
update it. But other religious texts as well, for others of the world's religions, also, you can read too much into it, but there are other examples of human and non-human beings that are not necessarily demons or angels. Also, it's worth noting that the word angel in Sumerian, which is the first language we actually have a breakdown of, 5,500 years old or so, that it predates ancient Hebrew and Tibetan, Egyptian, and everything like that, but that the word angel originally translated in a way that had nothing to do with theology or religion. It was an emissary or a go-between, a word that you could use as easily interchangeable in the halls of power and government. And that this particular emissary had come to Earth and made enough of an impression on the being that it interacted with that he laid it all out, and then it became part of the record and the dominant religion's major book.
I think it's so interesting that you said that angels and demons, they could have just been aliens, because right now, if you mention aliens around some like really, really, really hard, fast Christians, they'll be like, those aren't aliens, those are angels and demons.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
I like the idea of the go-between, because it seems like more and more people that we talk to, right? Like everything kind of boils down to a lot of similarities, and it's kind of not, I think it was last week we were talking to two gentlemen, and they were talking about spirit communication, but the bottom line was that they were talking to people who had been go-betweens in between, us and sky people, right? And it's in a completely different culture, completely different time period. So it's just it's fascinating to me that once you start to see just any connection that you make just brings more questions, right?
That's the best thing about facts.
Right. As I like to think of it, reality does not care what we believe.
It
That's a
laughs
really
at
good
us.
point.
Believe
Yeah.
whatever
Really
you
good point.
want, but
Yeah.
I still exist in my own thing.
amen.
Well, we need to wrap up. We're at the end of the hour.
Mhm.
Do you have anything you want to plug or tell us all about?
Yeah,
Oh,
before
go
we do
ahead.
that, before
This
yeah,
coming
go ahead.
weekend, as happens annually, 4th of July weekend, is the Roswell, New Mexico UFO Festival and Conference that I'm a part of sometimes, not this year, but have a number of good friends that will be there. It's a wonderful event. If you are in the Southwest and you can get there, or anywhere, do go. The following weekend, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, the biggest UFO organization in the world, has their annual international symposium just across the river from Cincinnati, and has a great speakers lineup this year as well. Labor Day weekend, which is last weekend in August, I will be back in Exeter, New Hampshire, where we will be marking the actual 60th anniversary of the incident at Exeter, one of the best documented UFO incidents in history, where the primary witnesses were all local police officers who never backed down from their stories at the risk of their career. And that's a favorite event of mine, in part because it's run by the Kiwanis. It's nonprofit, and we raise money every year for children's services in that part of New Hampshire. And last year we raised $35,000 for children's services, which gives us a bragging right no other UFO conference has.
Yeah.
That's a nice little coin change. Coin
Mhm.
change?
Yeah,
Coin
that's
purse.
all right.
That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
it's
fine.
fine.
The end of September, I will be in Michigan, and the conference name escapes me right now. I can let you know so you can help us promote it closer to the mark.
Mhm.
And a virtual conference in Springfield, Illinois in October. And then it gets cold, and who knows what's going to happen next.
That happens every year.
Yeah. I know people can find you on your website, and I know that they can find you on Facebook, right?
Yeah. In fact, my website is totally torn apart right now under work. But yeah, I am on Facebook. You can reach me there pretty much all the time. And it has been a pleasure spending this hour with you two.
It has been a
great.
pleasure for us. Thank
And
you
I have-
so much for joining us. Jeni, I'm not going
Mhm.
to let you talk. No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
All right. I just have one last thing. If so sort of to reduce, I guess, the stigma surrounding it, or kind of push for like more and more disclosure, what would you ask of our audience, or just anybody who's had an experience or not? What would you leave us with?
That's a great question.
Oh.
Educate yourselves. There is so much information out there. Your main responsibility has to be discerning, because the internet, as we all know, is a double-edged sword. There's a lot of valuable information out there and a lot of complete and total utter crap. If you see a good UFO documentary, recommend it to somebody whose opinion you know and trust, that you can discuss it with. Look into what books are best recommended. Again, the more we know about any subject, the more we can take part in a dialogue around it. And this is about as important as anything gets, even in our world of environmental degradation and political machinations. The implications for humanity are huge. And this is one of the very few issues, I think, that can bring people together of very different opinions, politically and otherwise.
Yeah.
So continue to take it seriously, network, listen and watch shows like this. And that is disclosure. It is a process. Whether we have a moment in history where all the world leaders go on TV at the same moment and everything changes, I'll believe it when I see it. In the meantime, the process continues.
Well said. Thank you so much.
Seriously. Thank
That
you.
was
This has been a
fantastic.
delight. Oh, this whole thing
Yes.
has been a delight. I'm so excited.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Everybody else, join us on our social medias. You can email us. You can see our merch on our website, monstersloungepodcast.com. Until next time, thanks for visiting the Monsters Lounge.